Johnny Crowder. What an impressive man. Grew up in an abusive home. He was officially diagnosed with mental health issues in high school, but was with uh, lots of trauma there with mental health. He does a much better job of describing it, and he takes psychology courses, credit college level and high school to get better, to help others. He deals with it. He turns it around. He's got 2 TEDx talks that are just absolutely incredible. Um, and what has he done? He's helping others now. He's in a music band. He writes songs. He created an app that helps others deal with it called Cope Notes. He does peer counseling with NAMI. He's just an incredible advocate for mental health, and it's his mission to try to help others, especially with this issue. I open up talking about mental health. What should we do about it? What can we do to help others? We talk about some celebrities and athletes who, there's more talk about it now, but there's just not enough. It's a great start, but again, it's just a start, and we need to talk about it more. But it's just a wonderful story. He's an inspiration. We talk about um, he gives us one insight of this one. I say specifically, give me an example, or what can we do to help? And he gives this insight of a particular issue that he had and what he went through, and with a previous girlfriend. It's absolutely wonderful, and it's just a great conversation with Johnny Crowder. And by the way, his dog is named Pepperoni Pizza. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Excited. Johnny Crowder, so excited to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time today. What do we need? What does the public need to know about mental health?
That it's for them.
I love what you say about comparing mental health to dentistry. Let's talk about it.
Well, I first of all love that it rhymes, dental health and mental health. But I always tell people people who have heard my talks before have heard me make the comparison in the way that, like, if you have teeth, you should brush them.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you have cavities or not. It doesn't matter if they're bright white or yellow. I mean, the fact is you should be brushing your teeth twice a day. But what I sometimes don't get to fit into talks is this idea of, like, social stigma. Like, if I was staying the night at your house and I bring out my bag that I keep all my toiletries in and I pull out a toothbrush, would you go, ugh, what's he doing with that? He's brushing his teeth. Wow, he probably has cavities. No, you'd be like, of course you should brush your teeth. I think that's kind of how we react when someone tells us they're in therapy. We're like, ugh, you're in therapy. What's going on? Are you a lot to handle or something? Instead of like, yeah, yeah, you should be. That's responsible. I dream of shifting that narrative.
Mm. Yeah, everybody brushes their teeth every day, and it's just common whether you have it or not, whether you have good teeth or not, and that's really what mental health should be. I mean, we see more examples, Johnny, of it now. We see athletes, we see actors, we see musicians coming out and saying they have these issues. It's being talked about more, but perhaps just not enough. How do we need to? Does that help? First of all, that they're coming out and saying that.
I think so, but I think we can't stop there. So I
Right.
remember there being this general like, so Justin Bieber did, I think, a documentary or something about mental health. And I remember there being this general sense of like, we did it. We're done. We solved mental health. A big
Mm,
celebrity is now talking about mental health, so it's over. And my argument is no, now it's starting. This is the beginning of it. There's so much work left to do. So I think on one hand, yes, it does help to have high profile people share like this is affecting me too. Because just like people will hire Ben Stiller to be in a commercial for MasterCard. Like for whatever reason, celebrities have social capital. They have
mm,
sway, they have influence.
mm.
So me saying I struggle with mental health doesn't hit the same as Ben Stiller saying he
Right.
struggles with mental health. So whether that's positive or negative, it's true. So when I see athletes and celebrities speaking out about it, it does have a cultural impact. And I think that's great for them to speak out and say, everybody faces this stuff. This is real, no matter what you think someone's life looks like from the outside. I think that's wonderful. I just think we have to, as a society, not just stop at awareness. Awareness is like where it starts. Like now that
Mm.
we are growing more aware of things, what are we going to do? You know?
And it's kind of like the losing weight journey. People treat it like a finish line. Okay, I lost the weight and now I'm all set, but it's a life change. You have to continue these things. You have to continue what you're doing. You can't just go back to the old way. I assume that, I think of Simone Biles. Okay, here we have a very young, perhaps one of the greatest gymnasts in American history, and she backed out of some of the Olympic or most of the Olympic events. And she said it's just a lot of pressure. She just can't handle it. I mean, that brings awareness, right? That shows that these people are real people. They're just not machines. There's mental health issues there.
Yeah, the one thing I love about the sports example in particular, it's very similar. Sports and entrepreneurship are very similar. There's lots
Hmm.
of like grit and grind it out and toughen up and like you need to do the work that no one else is willing to do. There's a bunch of that type narrative in sports and in entrepreneurship. And I love how contrarian Simone Biles is to that. She's like, no, I will not tough it out. This is a lot of pressure
Mm,
and I'm going to
mm.
take care of myself. It's almost like the exact opposite. Like, think Nike, just do it. No matter what happens, just do it. And Simone is like, I will not just do it. I will take care of myself. It's like the antithesis of the primary messaging around sports. And I think that's what makes it so powerful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't think of that. It is a really good point, especially as gymnasts are teenagers, for God's sakes. They're young kids and they're in the prime of their career. Your TEDx talk, Johnny, was absolutely incredible. It was 21 that you did that? 2021?
First one was 2020. Second one was 2022.
22. I think that's the one I saw. I didn't realize you did two. But you
Mhm.
you open up with a plane ride.
Yes, that was 2022.
Yeah, and you say that the crew was starting to sob, and you were losing gravity, and you were losing, but you felt some comfort in it because you had always kind of planned to end things.
Yeah, although I didn't feel like complete peace, it was so weird. I was like, I remember thinking, if I'm the one who always wanted to die, then why aren't I skipping and jumping around the plane like,
Right.
woohoo, we're going
Right.
down? Like, why do I feel this feeling? And I think what really shook me is I realized like I was missing parts of my own life because of pressure I put on myself, like Simone Biles, or because of depression or anxiety that I didn't deal with. Like, because of me not loving myself, I missed these moments. Like, as the plane descended, I was like, man, I didn't think of all the things I didn't get to do.
Mm.
I thought of like, man, how come I didn't actually love myself? How come I didn't actually love my life and the person I got to be? It's totally not oh, I never saw the Eiffel Tower. I didn't think anything like that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and you say you give a great kind of at the end, write down 10 reasons to stay alive. You say, your motto is tomorrow might be better. And you actually have a checklist on your arm.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I like the phrase tomorrow might be better because technically it's never untrue. Like, because the operative word is might. It
Right.
might be better. And I think for a long time I was convinced that the next day would be worse or equally as bad. I never saw I mean, imagine if the world got 1% hotter every single day, we'd be on fire after like 6 months, right?
Mm.
But I kept thinking, "Oh, today's gonna be either just as bad or a little bit worse, just as bad or a little bit worse." It's
Hmm.
kind of like saying in the heat of summer, it's like saying tomorrow's gonna be just as hot or even hotter. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but at a certain point, it's not true. It can't become hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter.
Right.
And I wish I just gave more credence to the idea that I can't read the future. I don't know what tomorrow will be like. And at least there's a coin toss chance. There's a 50% chance that tomorrow might be better than today.
Yeah, there certainly is. And you grew up in a very abusive household. There was lots of substance abuse, and before grade school, you had these kind of traumatic events. And to a certain point, Johnny, I mean, you do a much better job describing it, of course, but you wanted to help others, and you found out that you didn't need to be perfect to help others.
Yeah, I think anyone who's listening to this, you're not like a doctor, are you?
Certainly not.
Okay. I feel like there are doctors listening to this who totally know what I'm talking about. We look at doctors like they have it all figured out.
Right.
But it's like, dude, there are doctors who smoke. There are doctors
Yeah.
who eat McDonald's. There are doctors who don't stretch. Like, come on.
Gamble. Yeah.
So all of these, we're all looking at each other like everybody else is perfect, and then we disqualify ourselves by saying, "Oh, I can't help somebody because I'm not yet perfect." And I think what really inspired me was learning about peer support in college. I had never heard of peer support, but basically it means, I live with bipolar 1. And if you also live with bipolar, then I can leverage my lived experience with bipolar to help you
Hmm.
without me magically being cured of all of my symptoms. I can still provide value to you. And that was so empowering to me to know that, like, you don't have to be a doctor to help someone. In fact, this is something that I ask people a lot. I say, like, if I'm giving a keynote or something, I say, everybody close their eyes right now and picture someone who's made a massive impact on your life, on your mental or emotional health, on the way that you feel, the way that you look at the world. And I say, open your eyes, raise your hand if that person was a doctor.
Hmm.
And it's like 3 people out of 1,000 raise their hand. It's like many of these people are like our friends, our family
Right.
members, our coworkers. Like, I think the idea that you are underqualified to help people is just an excuse not to help people.
Right. And you took college level courses in high school, Johnny, just to try to get an edge, to try to help, to try to understand.
Yeah, I am kind of a nerd. I'm like a closet nerd. So I love all things behavioral health, but I also love learning.
Hmm.
So when I was in high school, it was literally between um, taking, so I had to take some college level courses because I was in the IB program. So I was like, do I want to focus my time and attention on learning about chemistry
Mm.
or history or calculus? Definitely not calculus.
Hmm.
Was not interested in that. But I was like, why don't I focus on the thing that's going to make the largest impact on my own life? And I was like, by the end of this year, if I get really good at understanding calculus, will it materially change my life at all?
Mm.
Well, probably not. By the end of this year, if I really gain a better understanding of how the brain works, will it materially impact my life? I was like, yeah, probably right.
And it did. And you were officially diagnosed in high school, correct?
Yes.
With lots of
Yes.
resistance.
Yeah, my mom uh
Yeah, she
so
drove you. Yeah.
I super did not want to go.
Yeah.
Um but really it was literally between that and juvie. It
Mm.
was like, listen, either we can take you to the doctor or the police can take you to the doctor,
Mm.
but either way you're going. I was like, oh
Mm.
shoot. So I went, and I remember them they asked me a bunch of questions, and I had to sit down with a few different people. And then when they were reading me their diagnoses, I was interpreting them as insults.
Right.
Like they said schizophrenia, and I'm like, oh, I'm schizophrenic? You think I'm crazy? I would like start puffing up and getting so emotional. But the psychology courses actually helped me understand, like, these are this is medical terminology. It's like saying that someone is lame. Like colloquially, we say lame
Mm.
as like an insult, but
Sure.
lame, I think, doesn't that mean that you can't walk?
That's right. I think literally.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's like a term in health that has a definition that's related to health, and then there's like the cultural version that we've appropriated as an
Mm.
insult.
Mm.
I needed, like, taking psychology courses helped me separate those things from
Mm.
like, oh, he's just depressed or he's just being anxious, to like, what is depression? What is generalized anxiety disorder? Like, what do these things look like when we're not using them as insults?
Yeah, in aviation, we very commonly say, retard the engine, retard the
Mhm.
speed, slow it down. Of course, that's not accepted at all today. And I haven't had my pilot's license for quite a while, but I remember some of these phrases that they would just use
Mhm.
that they're very tough. And so now you enter rehab, and again, it's not drug, it's not alcohol, it's purely to get things straight. And you say that you didn't capitulate, Johnny, right? The worst mistake you made was just to resist, and you wasted years.
Yeah, so I was seeing a number of different clinicians on a regular basis for years. And the first couple years, I had such a dismissive attitude towards,
Hmm.
like, but to be fair, some of my early clinicians were very like out of a Dilbert cartoon. They were
Is that
like,
right?
how does that make you feel? And I'm like, just skip this part. Let's get to the real tangible, like, I want to talk about
Wow.
solutions.
Wow.
And it took me, I saw a few different clinicians until and I just totally wasted my time with them. Like, I just would deflect, and just wasn't taking them seriously. And then I met this one woman, um, who which I remember her saying something to me where I was like, whoa, this is unlocking something. She was like asking for information about my life. And I was like, all right, you want it, lady? I grew up totally crazy. I got the crap beaten out of me when I was growing up. I feel like no one's my friend, and I don't have anyone in my corner, and I feel like my life is terrible and I don't know what to do. And sometimes I just wish that I wasn't alive anymore. And she goes, that sucks. And I was like, yeah,
Huh.
that does suck. And I felt like
Wow.
I got something from her that I didn't get from anyone else, which is, before her, I had people either being it's like they were trying to be so clinical and by the book,
Mm.
but they were missing the human element.
Right. They
They
were
were
human.
saying, like, how does that make you feel? And like, they
Mm.
would also say, well, it's very normal for people your age to feel, and it felt very like condescending and like it was
Mm.
sincere. And then hearing this grown woman, this doctor, say that sucks. I'm like, you might be the first person who actually heard what I said.
It's freaking great.
And I built an amazing relationship with her. She was the first clinician that I actually started participating with, and I worked with her for years.
Wow. She's just being human. Isn't that something? We can all kind of learn from that. Just in everyday transactions, just being human, just it's just so simple in sales, in whatever you're doing, just be human. My God.
Yeah, that's why it makes me so frustrated when people are like, "Well, I'm not a doctor. I don't have the credentials." It's like the most valuable thing any clinician ever said to me was something she did not learn in
That's right.
school.
That sucks. Yeah. Yeah. I like the point that you make about there doesn't have to be a rock bottom. There doesn't have to be a turning point, a come to Jesus.
Yeah.
Some people kind of wait for that. Explore that, please.
Yeah, I this is tough for me because I talk to a lot of people at specifically at conferences, like if I give a talk and it's during Q&A or afterwards, they say, "Well, I know that," let's say they say, "I know that my drinking is a problem.
Mm,
I know that my temper is a problem, but it hasn't yet destroyed my marriage. It's been
right.
close, but my wife has been really good to me." And I always tell them, "Isn't now the time to do something? Not after you lose your marriage?" I think there's a tendency, so I think this is largely informed by media, actually. Like when we watch, the hero's journey, there's always this point where the hero in a movie or something is climbing and climbing and climbing, and then there's this big, when you think Superman's dead, you're like,
Right.
wow. You're an hour and a half into the movie, and then it's like it shows Superman fall off the cliff and he can't fly or whatever, and you're like, holy crap, Superman just died.
Mm,
And then Superman like just takes off, and you're like, ah, yes, he was alive the whole time. That emotional roller coaster, I think we've seen that played out so much in media that we anticipate, oh, I can't really rise until I've been really low.
mm,
And I think that is such a Hollywood fallacy.
mm,
Like, there's no truth to that. Anybody right now, you could put on 10 pounds and say, you know what? I need to just stop drinking soda. And no, you won't have like a super dramatic, like Hollywoodified, like New York Times bestseller type story, but you don't want a story. You
mm.
want a life.
Results. Yeah.
And those are two completely different things. I don't think you have to go through hell to get to heaven. I just think that's the narrative that seems most inspiring when
Mm,
other people share it. And so they look at me and they're like, "Yeah, I want to have a story like that." And I'm like, "No, you don't.
mm.
You want to have a life that is amazing. The story is only a byproduct of having a life that was not amazing." So trust me, any given day, I think someone with a really inspiring story where they hit rock bottom and then climbed, any of those people would gladly trade with somebody who has a pretty boring story and a great life.
Hmm. Yeah, we always see it in the movies where we're in recovery where, hi, my name is, Joe. Hello, Joe. And, tell us
Mhm.
about your story. And well, I hit rock bottom when, I had to do this, this, and that. I guess we kind of just see that and that turned them around. But hopefully, like you said, like those, if somebody actually comes and says to you, I have an alcohol problem or drinking problem, but it hasn't destroyed my marriage yet. Oh my goodness, Johnny, what do you do with that? Do you shake them? I said, don't let it go there. That's a burden.
Yeah, I heard this awesome sermon a couple years ago. It was by Andy Stanley, and he was talking about guardrails. And he said, I think one example that he used was like in your marriage, and he was saying like, well, I'm not cheating on my wife. I just think she's really pretty. And then I went out to lunch with her, like this other girl, but it's not a huge deal. Like we haven't kissed or anything. And, we're just kind of acquaintances and we get along. And he's like, bro, now's the time to stop. In
Mm,
fact, before now was the time to stop, before you went to lunch. And he was saying that guardrails, people talk about guardrails as like that's the thing that you hit. But he said, if you've ever been on like a really winding road that's on a cliff, you'll notice there's the edge of the cliff. What that's like, I don't know, infidelity or addiction or something like that,
Mm,
completely falling off. And then a good 8 feet from the edge of the cliff is the guardrail. And then between the edge of the guardrail and the edge of the road is another 4 feet. And then between the edge of the road and the yellow line that you're supposed to drive inside of is another 3 feet. So, like, don't focus on the guardrail. You shouldn't be coming anywhere close to that.
right.
You should be focusing only on that yellow line, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. The guardrail, nobody hits guardrails. We don't want to hit the guardrails. We avoid them. There's a perfect
And
analogy. They're there to guard you against, and they're not designed to kind of soften you in like a pillow and bump you back in. They're metal and they're ridged and they're,
mhm.
and they're there to prevent, catastrophes. So Johnny, you're so fascinating to me because you have this, and you do the TED Talks, and you have a metal band, Prison, and you're doing events, and you're in NAMI where you're helping people. You're in these peer groups. Uh, these outlets, you love to ride bikes, you go to car shows, you have all these great, hobbies. Is it what's the most rewarding? Is the peer are the peer groups? I mean, it must be tough to kind of qualify that, but you're giving back so much. Not really a
Most
question there.
rewarding, that's a good ask. I would say probably music, because music, I've been thinking about this a lot because I just got back from tour. And when you get back from tour, it's called post-tour depression. Like,
Mm.
it happens to almost every touring musician that you know. You get home and you start going to sleep at normal times, and like on tour, you're never alone. You're around your band. You're around your tour mates and crew and everything and fans 24/7. I mean, when you poop at a gas station, it's your guitarist in the next stall pooping next to you. Like,
Wow.
you're not by yourself.
Yeah.
So going from that level of social exposure to home
Mm.
and being alone in your apartment, it's really jarring. And a lot of people have difficulty with that transition. I've been thinking a lot about, you get really in your head your first couple days back from tour. And I've been thinking about music in general and my relationship with it. And the thing that I can't shake is, like, yes, touring is maybe the hardest thing I'll ever do. It's
Right.
it's impossible. The amount of logistical hurdles and challenges, and you're sleeping in a van, and you're going to get sick, and you're going to hurt your back, and you're going to lose sleep and skip meals and all this stuff, and you do it for basically free. Like, it doesn't pay anywhere close. You could get a job flipping burgers and make 7 times as much as I do making music. So what I was thinking was, like, what is it that makes me so committed to music after all these years? I played a
Mm.
thousand shows, a decade and a half of playing live music. And I was like, I think it's because music loves me in a way that people can't.
Mm.
Like, I think people have a limit in the amount of love they are able to give. And that's just because we're all human.
Right.
But music, like, there's always a song. There's always a riff, there's always a chord progression, there's always a melody or a harmony, something that can love me and support me in a way that people can't.
Hmm.
And it's this relationship that I think some people have it with rock climbing, some people have it with cooking, but for me, it's the way that I feel loved and supported by music. When I go make music, I feel like I'm pouring back into the pool that poured into my cup.
Hmm. It's
And it's
unconditional.
Yeah, it's not, and I want to be clear, like, I love that fans come out, and I love that we get to play with bands, and I love, but it's just for the answer to this specific question.
Right.
If you ask what is most rewarding, I think what makes it rewarding, because everything I do is for other people. Everything I do is like advocacy, like for the community. But the part that is rewarding isn't necessarily even the people part. It's the fact that I get to make music, the
Mm.
type of music that helped me cope growing up. So it's this weird full circle, like this thing that gave me hope and empowered me in my youth. Now I get to give back to it, you know?
Yeah, it's got its own life, doesn't it? And it's unconditional, kind of like pepperoni pizza is unconditional, I'm sure as well.
Yeah, for people who don't know, I have a golden retriever named Pepperoni Pizza, and I almost wish that I didn't say that, and that people listening just thought like, "Wow, Johnny loves pepperoni pizza so much unconditionally."
And it's fascinating to me that, because we didn't even mention Cope Notes. You're an entrepreneur. You're also, you have this great application that's helping people uh, with mental health issues. It drops notes, and through everything that you do, all the advocacy that you do, it's this, it's the art itself that gives you back what you put into it. It's an
Yeah,
amazing notion.
yeah, it's easy. I just made a post on Facebook about this yesterday, about how it's easy to lose sight of your why. Like in a band, for
Mm,
example, you think, oh, it's about our Spotify streams, it's about um, what festivals we can play,
mm,
it's about how many dollars in merch we sold or how many records we sold. And then in in the entrepreneurship world, it's what's your monthly recurring revenue,
right.
how many full-time employees do you have, like there's how many awards have you won, how many pitch competitions. So there's like all of these things that I think serve to distract you from
Mm,
this kid commented on my post and said it's so easy to lose the plot. And I was like, wow, that's such a great phrase. Like I sometimes do lose the plot, and like you said, what brings me back is the art of it, the advocacy of it, the intention. Like I'm so mission driven that sometimes my ambition distracts me from why I'm doing it in the first place. I'm not doing it to get a million streams. I'm not doing it to sell out a theater. I certainly hope those things happen.
mm.
I'm not doing it to build $1 billion company. Certainly hope that happens. That'd be amazing. But why I started was not to become a billionaire, become famous. It was to write a song. It was to invent something. I never want to lose that creativity.
A famous quote. They asked Prince, how's the record business, and he said, "I'm not in the record business. I'm in the music business. I make music. Those people put the records out, but you
I love
know, yeah. So it's interesting. When did you develop this sense of art, this sense of music? Is it later in life? Is it as a youth? You said it helped you through. How young?
Yeah, I was. So when I was younger, I was definitely experiencing symptoms of mental illness that I don't think I understood. I don't think my family understood it. And I turned to art and music when I was very young. I drew a ton, like as a toddler, and then I started drumming on stuff, and eventually started playing guitar when I was 7. I started
Wow.
playing like a little Walmart, like first act kind of guitar, and I go like this as if I actually played it the way it's supposed to be played, but I was
Yeah.
7. So it was like sitting on the floor and I was plucking strings. But I think the what drew me to art and creativity and music was that I had difficulty expressing myself verbally,
Mm.
and music did something. It communicated something that I couldn't, and a drawing communicated something that I couldn't. And then eventually I started writing like poems and short stories, and I was like, wow, I can write in a way that I can't speak. And I felt freedom of expression there. So I think that's really what drew me to art, and what kept me coming back was I can express myself more honestly
Mm.
through art than I can through words. Because if I'm having a conversation with you socially and I see you ruffle your brow or you kind of lean back in your chair, I accidentally, unconsciously change the way I share to placate
Mm.
you. It's a social algorithm inside all of us. We're always
Certainly is.
trying to be accepted. So when I'm writing a song, I'm not looking at someone's face as I write the song. It's just me and the music.
I had the pleasure of speaking to Tina Davidson this week, who's a classical American composer, and she said the same thing, Johnny. She said when she was young, she couldn't express herself verbally. She expressed herself through her music. She wanted her music to be her face, so she can kind of, kind of get in the back and let this is me. This is what I'm trying to say right now, uh, and you could decide however you want to consume it. And is it a natural? Is it a great it was a great outlet for you. I wonder if it's a common fit for those who have mental issues, mental illness. I wonder.
Yeah, art is definitely, it's almost like an alternative communication method. So if you look
Mm.
like, uh, it's almost like another language, and then
Hmm.
each medium is another language. Like sculpting is different from, I used to do graffiti, I used to do charcoal, I used to do pastel. Like each medium is kind of its own method of communication. And I think that a lot of people that I've met, I mean, there's a reason why art therapy is a thing, right? Like
Right.
encouraging people to test other forms of communication to express things that they're having difficulty expressing verbally. And I would argue that most people aren't fully conscious of how they actually feel. And then if you challenge them to be creative and something comes out onto the page or onto the canvas or something, and they're like, whoa, I didn't even know that I
Wow.
felt that way. But art
Wow.
kind of has a way of pulling it out of you.
It's amazing to me how art is just the answer to so many issues like that. To be able to express oneself. You're in the Tampa area, there in Western Florida. The Dali Museum is down there in St. Petersburg. Man, I love that. Just just seeing the way this man expressed himself like that, so unique. So, uh, I walk out of there though, like I saw 10 concerts though. I don't know if you feel this way.
Yeah.
I want to spend so much with one, and then I kind of walk, and then I hear somebody translating it, which I don't really like because I want to translate it the way I want to. And I do you get you have an intention for one of your songs. Does it bother you if somebody else misinterprets it or has their own interpretation? How do you feel about that?
Dude, so almost every single one of my songs have been totally misinterpreted. Like it's so funny how I'm like, I feel like I'm being so clear and direct and honest, and
Mm,
then
mm.
I hear people listen to the song and they're like, yeah, this like reminds me of my breakup with my girlfriend. I'm like, how on earth does this remind you of that? And I think that's kind of a beauty of art. Like
Yeah.
I am big on sharing my intention for like why I wrote a song. I'm very open about that, but I also want to hear other people's interpretations first because I don't want to
Mm.
bias it. Like I like hearing somebody say, "Here's what I thought." I'm like, "What? That's crazy. Here's why I wrote it." But I never want them to abandon their like why it spoke to them. I'm like, if that's what happened, like, I've seen paintings and at museums, and I like have this feeling where I'm like, wow, I just feel like calm and
Right.
comforted. Like
Yeah.
there's a woman in the painting, and I'm like, I feel like she's just so like maternal, and I feel cared for and supported. And then you read the background, it's like, oh, this was a woman that the
Raped.
painter, yeah, like
Yeah.
was, and you're just like, what? I
Yes,
had
tortured.
no
Yeah.
idea.
Happens all the time. Happens all the time. There's
I
a
just
famous Go ahead.
I'm reading this book, or no, it wasn't in the book. It was in a master class about radical candor, and it was saying that intention or intent is measured at the listener's ear.
Mm.
So it's like I can mean what I want to mean when I write a song, but all that matters is how it's interpreted by the end person.
There's a famous story where Bob Dylan writes All Along the Watchtower, and then within 2 weeks, Jimi Hendrix is performing it live, and Dylan is there and sees him performing it and says, "That was never my song. That's the way it should have been played," and he never played it again. So here we have
Whoa,
an example. Yeah. Here we have an example of, he doesn't feel that it was ever his. It came to him, but it really belonged to Jimi Hendrix.
wow,
And
that's cool.
it's powerful. Yeah. Yeah, this is his interpretation, and it's the correct one.
Dang.
Yeah. Have you ever
I like
written in somebody else's voice?
a lot. I used to want to be a songwriter. In fact, I kind of still do. I just have a lot going on right now. So maybe when I'm too old to be in my own band, I will start writing for other artists because I love writing hip hop. I love writing acoustic, like fingerstyle acoustic and folk, like indie folk music, like singer songwriter stuff. I've written electronic music before. Um,
Wow.
I'm not interested in being all of those different types of artists. I'm just interested in writing that style of music and then giving it to someone who wants to be that kind of artist, you know?
Oh, that's really well said, Johnny, because I've written some lyrics before to myself, and I've got a lot of friends who are songwriters like, "Oh, I can help you write that." And I say, "You know what? I want you to just have it. I don't want to I want you to kind of who was the artist? I think it was Beck who had one album and he decided to release all the sheet music before he released it. And so he gave it to all these bands, and then they performed every song before he put out his album. Have you ever
And
heard of this? Yeah.
no, that's fascinating.
It's a great idea, isn't it? And all these bands came up with their own interpretation, and he loved it. And then he came out with his. It's a wild experiment. It's about maybe 7, 8 years ago. I forget which album it was.
That's wild.
Where would we be without art?
I don't know. It's like humanity's coping mechanism.
Yes. And then when do you make the pivot to be an entrepreneur?
So I think in a weird way, I've always been one in that I just like making stuff and then watching people enjoy it.
Mm.
Like that to me that's the whole point. I don't know if I like saying this so summarily, but I do feel like the point of life is making stuff and having other people experience it. Like I love that feeling. And I think early on, so the challenge for me when I was doing peer support was people wanted to talk to me and I couldn't be there for them. Either I was going through something or I was sleeping or I was at the gym or, I can't just be next to my phone all the time. And I was realizing that people need support. But like, let's say I come through your city and I play a venue or I give a keynote at a conference and the next day I leave. So maybe you have this great experience and I contribute to you, but then I leave. And I was like, I can't be there every day. It's a shame that I don't come back for 8 months. You know,
Hmm.
who's doing stuff for these people in the 8 months between my last concert there, my last talk there, and my next one? So I wanted to build something that could be there for people when I can't.
Hmm.
And I did not mean to start a company. I was not interested. I didn't know what startup meant. I didn't know what an LLC was. I had no interest in any of it. And all I wanted to do was build something that would help people. And then I had to learn all of the business stuff. I say had past tense as if I'm done learning, but I'm having to learn all of the business stuff every single day. We're 5.5 years in revenue right now. And I'm still every single day Googling stuff, listening to podcasts, reading books. So I really don't have a passion for building businesses. I have to pray to be passionate about building a business.
Mm.
Because what I'm really passionate about is helping people and making stuff that helps people. But in order for that to continue happening, I also have to build a business. So
Hmm.
the impact and mission side comes very naturally to me. The business side, if you would have told me you can build this thing, but you have to make it a company, I would have said no. So it only became a company when I realized it was the only way to continue doing it, you know?
Where does spirituality, you mentioned that, where does that play a role in your life now, Johnny?
Um, Jesus is my best friend, and younger me would laugh at me saying that or
Mm.
throw rocks at me or something. Definitely wouldn't be happy hearing that. But faith is a huge cornerstone of my life. I'm definitely not the most traditional Christian. Like, I listen to a whole ton of death metal. And I, I don't consider myself to be like aligned with a lot of values that are associated with Christianity in the media
Mm,
necessarily.
mm,
But if you look at like the core tenets of the gospel and like who God is and who Jesus is, I'm like 100% sold out. That's my life. So faith is, I would say without faith, I would probably still be medicated.
mm.
I would probably still be in some pretty serious treatment straits. I don't think I'd be nearly as healthy as I am now.
Mm.
Um, I think everything good in my life has come from God,
Wow.
and um, it's not. It sounds wild for me to say that, knowing how anti-faith and anti-God I was for so long. But I think, unfortunately, I had to reach a point where I realized that if I could control everything myself, if it was all really up to me, I would have fixed it by now. You
Mm,
know, like there was an element of letting go and understanding that the universe doesn't revolve around me, that
right.
actually provided a lot of freedom and peace.
Let Jesus take the wheel.
Dude, it's funny. Like, people say, I am my own God, and I
Mm.
always say that, oh no, oh no, you're God. It's you, the guy who lied to the cashier this morning so that you wouldn't have to round up to donate 21 cents to the nearest dollar for a children's day. It was you? Oh no. You can't be God. We're so screwed.
The
Like,
hubris in that.
dude, and honestly, that's what I thought for a long time. Like, I am the God of my life. I am the king of my life. And now I'm like, oh, thank God I am not the God of my life.
Yeah, that is. And kind of rounding back to the like original question, Johnny. Like, how can I help? How can others help people who have mental illness that need help? What can we do to participate in recovery and helping others?
So, one of the best things, I'll give a very specific example that I have not given as an answer to this question before. But it's just top of mind right now because I had a Facebook memory pop up. I think it was 10 years ago today, or 11
Whoa.
years ago. Um, so, I dated this girl in my early 20s, and 10 or 11 years ago. So, I must have been 19 or 20 years old, like right around that time. And I was experiencing severe symptoms of mental illness. Like, um, it's difficult to explain. Like, I was hallucinating on a near hourly basis,
Wow.
completely detached from reality. I had a lot of very clear issues that were pervasive. They were preventing me from living like a normal daily life. And I was dating someone at the time who was extraordinarily sweet, and she had her own basket of challenges that were different than mine, but allowed her to empathize with me. And I remember, this was at a time where I was actively suicidal. I was experiencing a ton of debilitating symptoms on a regular basis, and I didn't it was really difficult for me to explain what was going on, especially to her. I loved
Mm,
her so much. I didn't want her to
right.
worry or anything. Um, and one time I went into her backpack for something. I can't remember if my keys were in there or something, or my wallet, but I went into her backpack and I found a book about OCD. And I was like, what is this? And she said, oh, I was just trying to learn a little bit about what you're going through, so I could just understand it better. And I just started crying, just bawling. And I was like,
Wow.
you are amazing. Like, I can't believe that you are dedicating time to learning about what I'm going through. Like, I I don't think I've ever felt that supported by a partner in my entire life, to
Wow.
this day. And I think people listening can take that cue and be like, well, yeah, my husband's an alcoholic. And it's like, how much reading have you done?
Mm,
How many podcasts about this have you listened to? Like,
mm,
how many, there are opportunities, there are TED Talks out there about alcoholism. Like,
sure.
if you just put, I swear, if people put 1/10 of the amount of time they put into memorizing fantasy football statistics or celebrity gossip or whatever, if they took 1/10 of that time and put it into actually like health education, like learning about this stuff, I think they would be shocked at the transformation that takes place in their relationships or in their own lives. So, what I would encourage people to do is get educated, because the more that you understand about what the people around you are going through, the better you can support them.
Wow, what a wonderful story, Johnny. So, I started my business back in the 90s. I wasn't paying attention to myself. And I did have that kind of situation where I found myself at 340 pounds. My daughter was just born. The doctor said to me, "Look, if you don't lose this weight, you're not
Hmm.
going to ever see her graduate." And that just it set me off. So I spent the next year and a half, lost 130 pounds, and
No
people.
way,
Yeah, I
dude.
was I was 340. Yeah, I'm 200 now.
Wow.
Yeah. So and size 46-inch waist. I'm 32 now. So and it's like I said,
Crazy.
yeah, it's not just you can't look at it as a finishing line, right? You've got to keep at it. So many people gain weight back. You've got to look at it differently. But people, weight loss is one of the more difficult things to do in your life, and people always ask me for the kind of short answer. What did you do? What did you do? How did you lose it? And I always just say discipline. I just got discipline. I
Yeah.
got focused. That's how I lost it. How does that play a role in your life, Johnny Crowder?
Bro, it's the exact same. Like, I always joke. So my guitarist is in a similar situation. He's lost like 150 pounds or something crazy. And whenever people ask him, he's like, "You're gonna not like the answer." And
Yeah,
people are like, "What? No, tell me." And he's like, "Diet and exercise." And people go, "Ah,
of
it's so stupid."
course.
It's like, you freaking know that. You
Yes.
you didn't have to ask me to
No.
know that that's how you lose weight. Come on, bro. And I think everyone's looking for an answer that will not require a significant amount of effort from them. But
Mm.
here's my ugh. I sound like a parent right now. Are you ready for this? And I don't have kids, but I can hear like the dad in me
Right.
coming out.
Sure.
Are you ready for this, Joey? Jeez. Okay. I think it is through applying consistent effort to work towards a goal that's important to you that you actually develop the type of character you need to sustain the results anyway. Like, if you gave me, now I'm going to be straight up with you. I am really good with saving money. Like, I am fiscally responsible. I don't blow money on crazy stuff. That is only because, at least I think, only because I grew up in a house where nobody really had any spare change. I had to work super duper hard for the money that I did have. And I've done so much work for so little money for so long that it's instilled in me these financial habits that will certainly produce fruit long term. And I think if you would have said, okay, let's say Johnny saves up, let's say you save up $1 million over 10, 20, 30, 40 years, however long, whatever timeline you want it, or you just plop $1 million into my account. If I have not earned the type of characteristics that would allow me to be a good steward of the $1 million by working for it, I will blow it and ruin my life. So, bringing this back to the mental health thing, I think my what discipline looks like in my life is skipping social outings if it means that it will compromise my sleep or put me around a bunch of drugs and alcohol that I don't feel like being around. It means um, literally counting how many swipes of deodorant I put under each arm every day to make sure that I put a different number under each armpit to frustrate my OCD.
Wow.
every single day. It looks like every once in a while challenging myself to eat a French fry that has fallen onto the table of the restaurant instead of throwing it away, which I can't even explain how difficult that is for me. Um,
Wow.
it's hitting the gym when I don't feel like it because I know it's good for my mental health. Like so many of these things, it's it's learning to love. It's I don't know that it's necessarily learning to love discipline. It's learning to love the fruit of discipline enough to be disciplined.
Mm.
Like I can't always say that I love going to the gym, but if I can learn to love being healthy enough to justify spending an hour in the gym, that's a win for me. So
Mm.
really, it's not a dedication to discipline. It's a dedication to health. And I can sleep with that, even if it makes me uncomfortable sometimes to like, oh, it's early. I don't want to go to the gym. Or like, oh, I really don't feel like eating this out. It's like, okay, sit with that discomfort because is your commitment to French fries or is your commitment to your health? You know, I think where people get really tripped up is they think that they have to fall in love with the process.
Mm.
For me, that's a bonus. That's what I strive for. Is like I want to fall in love with the process. That's my
Hmm.
dream is to love working out, to love waking up early, to love eating salads. And I work towards that. But I think people people cheat themselves of early progress because they say, "Well, I don't love going to the gym." And I'm like, "That's okay. It's okay that you don't love going to the gym, but if you love yourself, you will go and you can pray to God for the love of the gym. You can pray to learn to love building a business. Like I literally pray you can look at my journal, bro, from early Cope Notes days. I said, God, give me the desire to build a business
Mm.
because I don't want to. I will do it because I know that it will serve people. But I'm telling you right now, I don't want to. Give me the desire
Mm.
to do it.
Consistency, routine, all parts of the discipline spectrum, I feel, are the vehicle or the journey in which you get to your goals. That's
Yeah,
what I hear.
I am I am a huge proponent of consistency, especially coming from an OCD background. I think people mistake OCD for consistency, but
Mm.
obsession sometimes looks like going to the gym and spending 7 hours there
Mm.
because you have to do 150 reps of every single exercise. That's not consistency, dude.
Right.
That's obsession. That
That's
is that is
obsession.
the opposite of consistency. Like what has been so fruitful for me is saying, how can I break this huge thing up, like losing over 100 pounds, or going from being on 5 medications to zero?
Mm.
How do I wean off of 20% of my current dosage in one medicine per 6 weeks over the course of however many years that's going to take? Like, I am such a believer in the slow, consistent, incremental change because I think what we want is to magically have it be different tomorrow. But what we lose along the way is the ability to steward the result unless
Mm.
we take our time and be consistent.
You got to keep, get that goal and work backwards. It's very, very true. And I love what you say about you want to love the process. You want to love waking up early. You want to love the gym. I mean, going to the gym is the worst part of it. Working out during it starts to get better, but the best part is walking out of there. For me, I feel so great.
Yeah.
This is why I did it, for this feeling right here, and
Yeah.
you can't let that go.
Dude, I know this is going to be kind of a goofy comparison, but on tour, it's just up top of mind because I just got home. On tour, let me tell you something. Musicians are not eating enough fiber. I will
Oh
just
boy.
be,
Oh
I'll leave it
boy.
at that
Oh boy.
because pretty much all the food that you get is like non-perishables. So it's like like jerky
Right.
or nuts, or you're eating,
Protein bars.
yes, tons of
Yeah.
protein bars. You're not eating a lot of actual, like, real substantive
Mm.
food. And we were like a week into tour, and my guitarist looks at me and he goes, "Dude, I've pooped once." I'm like, "There's no freaking way. There's no way."
Yeah.
And so we went to the venue, we loaded in, and then I was like, "That's it. We're going to Walmart." So we drive to Walmart. We get salad, like salad kits
Sure.
and probiotics, and we're like, "Bro, we're gonna get right." And it's funny because that day, our bassist, he ate at McDonald's and got a shake and stuff, and we're like, "Oh, that looks so freaking good." And then he also got a soft pretzel and popcorn from the venue. And I'm like, "Ah, that looks so good." And Cooper and I are over here eating salad, and we're like, "Man, we played ourselves. Like, all this stuff looks so good." And then the next morning, I just look at Cooper and I'm like, "Hey, how you feeling?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm good." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." Of course, we're grateful the next day. The hard part is, can you sit at a table eating a salad when your bassist is next to you eating McDonald's,
Right.
and not guilt yourself to trust that, like, it's going to be worth it? And I know we're talking about food, but it's true of everything, bro. Like,
Mm.
you have some friends who are like, "Oh yeah, I bought this like brand new Gucci belt," or like, "Oh yeah, I bought a new flat screen TV," or whatever. And you financially are like, "Oh man, I wish I had a big flat screen TV," or whatever. And you hold out. If you can learn, it's almost like if you can learn to trust that delayed gratification is not a lack of gratification.
Mm.
If you can learn to trust, like, I will thank myself. This is a phrase that I use often. I say, um, so I don't know if we have time. Can I tell like a 1 minute story?
Take your time, Johnny.
Okay. So this is a story that I like to call "Well, Well, Well, If It Isn't Future Johnny."
Huh.
And it was at my birthday party last year. I just had some friends over to my apartment complex, and there was a pool at my apartment complex. So we all went downstairs. We had some sandwiches and stuff, and we were just hanging by the pool. And it was
Nice.
hot. It was July, hot. And um, my I walked downstairs, and apparently, from walking from my apartment door to the pool in my flip flops, I had stepped in gum. And it was like, oh, I was like, ugh, I don't even feel like dealing with this. And I just want to get in the pool. And I was like, I'll worry about that later. So I said out loud to my friend, "That's a problem for future Johnny."
Hmm.
And I got in the pool. 15 minutes later, my friend says, "Hey, do you have a pair of swim trunks? Like an extra pair of swim trunks?" And I was like, "Yeah, let me run up to my apartment to get it." I go put on my sandals, forgetting that the gum was on the bottom. And I walk up the stairs
Uh-oh.
from my sandals sitting outside for 15 minutes in 100-degree Florida July heat. This gum had become so goopy and melty that it got okay. Each time I walked, it stuck to the pavement and pulled up, stuck to the pavement and pulled up, and the wind was blowing little wisps of the gum all into my leg hairs, all up and down my leg hairs, covered my apartment because I didn't think to look down.
Ah.
So now some stranger's gum is all I need to trim my leg hair to get all of this stranger's gum out of, and my sandals are just about ruined, all in my apartment. I just think I said out loud, "Well, well, well, if it isn't future Johnny." Like, I made it his problem,
Hmm.
and 15 minutes later, I became him. So all of this to say, I view discipline as a way of getting future Johnny to say, "Yo, past Johnny, you did me a huge solid. I am
Hmm.
grateful for you, brother." It's a way to set your future self up for success, and I think it's important to remember that you are future Joe.
Hmm.
It's not somebody else. It's you. You'll thank yourself.
That's wonderful. That's very true too. A lot of times we seem so short-sighted. As I get older, I find that a little bit more easier to agree and see that concept through. It's a wonderful antidote. Johnny Crowder, what motivates you?
What motivates me? Definitely, I think it goes back to what I shared before, making stuff that helps people feel better.
Mm.
That's like the most the most accurate and succinct answer to that question that I can think of.
Now, when you say feel better, be better, feel better, do better.
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think something that makes someone feel better. My definition of feel better isn't like I ate some potato chips and now I feel better, or I'm hooking up with a stranger even though I'm married and I feel better right now. It's really like long term feel better, you know?
Healthy.
Yeah.
You know, whenever I feel that I had some minor part in a friend or somebody's, growth, there's nothing quite as rewarding.
And it's also like it's such a privilege to give back. Like so many people have helped me, dude. A
Mm,
lot of people have not. I want to be clear about that.
right.
Most people have not helped me. But the people who have, the list is a mile long.
Mm, mm.
And I love the idea that now that I'm actually becoming healthier on a regular basis, that I can turn around and give to the same. It's kind of like those little things that they used to have at um, convenience stores or gas stations. It's a little thing with the pennies in it.
With the pennies. Oh, like
Yeah,
the penny change, like you put.
yeah, like there'd just be change. So if you're like a penny short
Oh
or like
yeah,
5 short, you just pull from that.
yeah.
I feel like I've been pulling from that for 30 years.
Wow.
And so music and cope notes and speaking and advocacy, all these things that I do, it feels like I'm finally, after taking, because I needed it. I was going to die without it. I was going to starve without that extra penny or that extra nickel. Now that I have the ability to give back, it feels like each time I give a keynote, each time I play a concert, I'm putting another penny back in there and being like, thank you so much for sustaining me. And I
Hmm,
hope to give $1 billion worth of pennies into those things because I feel like I must have taken at least 1 billion.
hmm. How do you measure success?
Dude, I was just thinking about that yesterday. Um, I'm wrestling with that right now. Kind of like we talked about how you can get caught up in thinking that a certain amount of Spotify plays are a success
Hmm.
or playing certain festivals is a success or
Merch.
um, yeah, I think right now I would probably define success as being healthy and happy and connected
Mm.
while still learning and growing on a regular basis.
Hmm.
And probably you could argue that there's an element of contentment that's necessary for success because there are people, dude, you think Cope Notes is a legit company. I have friends who are 5 years older than me who are running like literally $1 billion companies.
Yeah.
So like you're talking in terms of like worldly success, way, 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 way more successful. But they are less content with their company than I am with mine.
Mm.
And I don't mean content as complacent, two completely different things. But I think that if you have all the money and success in the world, you have all the love from other people in the world, but you feel that you don't have enough, you've failed.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So I think in addition to everything I just said, there has to be a degree of contentment where like after all the dust settles, all is said and done, I am grateful for what I have and I think that it was all worth it, you know?
I'm gonna soak that in for a moment, Johnny.
I need to hold myself accountable to that, dude.
Yeah.
It's easy to say it in a podcast interview. It's harder
Sure
to
is.
to feel it when you lay down at night and you're like, oh, I can't believe we didn't close that deal or whatever. It's like, well, are you successful?
Mm,
Like that's when it's hard, is in the face of failure,
mm,
to be like, are you still succeeding, by your own definition?
mm. You're an inspiration, Johnny. I mean, I'm so glad you accept this. I was excited to, I watched the TEDx once we first set this up. I rewatched it. I mean, it's absolutely inspiring, and many people would just get what you've done and just, get a job or do what, kind of close it off. But you didn't. You helping others. You want to. I did this for me. I think it could help others. Let me try to do that. It takes a certain, you know, wonderful kind of person to do that, and you need to be applauded for that. And whatever I can do to help, please reach out. And I'll be down there soon. Maybe I know you like to play pickleball. We'll hit the
Thank you.
pickleball around a little bit and get a little sweat going. And I look forward to that. But I thank you so much for your time today. How can we get in touch with you?
Um, First of all, thank you a ton for having me. It's been a great conversation. If you want to, so I'll make it super easy. If you want to learn about Cope Notes or try it for free or anything like that, you can go to copenotes.com. All sorts of information on there. There's also a contact form there. If you want to learn about my speaking or training stuff, that's johnnycrowder.com. And there's also a contact form there. And if you are into metal, or even if you're not, I encourage you to kind of step outside your comfort zone. If you go on Spotify or Apple Music, the band is called Prison. We just put out a music video for a song called Out of My Head. But you can also look up an album called Still Alive that is pretty representative of what we stand for as a band. And then the last thing I'll say is, I don't post on social media all the time, which is actually good for me that I don't.
Mm.
I post every so often, and if you want to tag along there, I'm on Facebook. If you look up Johnny Crowder, I'm on LinkedIn, probably most active on LinkedIn at Johnny Crowder. And then on Instagram, my handle is at Johnny Crowder Loves You, because I do.
Yeah, you certainly do. And it's Johnny, Johnnny, Crowder, Crowder. I'll make sure to put that all in the show notes. Johnny, thank you again so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you down in the pickleball court.
Heck yeah, bro. School me. Let's do it.
Be well. Take care. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.